is Rebecca Schissel Marshall with Whole Body Upgrade, a podcast to help you get unstuck, feel better, and have more energy. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to Whole Body Upgrade podcast. I'm Rebecca Schissel Marshall, and this is episode 79. How are you? How is everybody doing? It is so full-on spring here in Georgia. I know it's not that way everywhere in the world, but to me, it feels a lot like spring. And what I'm noticing is a lot of remembering and kind of a reawakening of who I am. There's a lot of struggle going on right now. I've been spending some time this week avoiding the remembering, avoiding this work that I do, that I love supporting clients with, and I am just resisting the heck out of it. And so it's really interesting, right? I thought we would talk about that because the more I resist it, the more it persists, right? What we keep fighting against is what's there. And I pulled a card today. If you're on my Instagram feed, you may have noticed that surrender was the card that I pulled. So finally I'm like, fine. Okay, I'm getting it. I get the message. So what's been happening is many core beliefs have been coming up, and there are a lot of feelings that are associated with them. So we've got the mental and the emotional wellness body, right? And I have been really working for a long time. You know, I've been interested in self-help and personal development for a long, long time. And I've been working to change these beliefs that have been here. I mean, they've been with me, right? And I really kind of avoided, or I think I forgot in a way, but I also think I was just avoiding it. A foundational piece of changing any thought, really, of really changing a thought, is actually to feel the emotion. That's a foundational piece that, like, if you just try to change the thought without feeling the emotion, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And for some reason, I thought, well, I could do it anyway. Or maybe I didn't even think about it. So as you probably know, anytime you forget anything foundational, you just can't really build anything of substance. So it feels kind of like you're building something in quicksand. That's pretty much how I've been feeling lately. And I've talked about emotions before on the podcast. If you haven't, if you aren't familiar with that, if you're just kind of jumping in at this, you might want to go back and look. There's one on seed moment healing where I talk a little bit about this in the context of the seed moment healing. That revisiting that episode may be helpful. You don't have to, but it just might be helpful. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit more about being with the feelings that show up. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background first, right? The emotional wellness body. You guys probably already know this, but the emotional wellness body, it's such an interesting body because in our culture, in the United States, most of us have been conditioned to somehow suppress or deny our emotions, or only certain emotions, right? Maybe we suppress anger, or maybe we suppress sadness. And I've been reading this book on imposter syndrome called Own Your Greatness, Overcome Imposter Syndrome. I just started it. It's very interesting, but there's something in the very beginning of the book that stood out to me. It mentioned how many people have imposter syndrome, that when they are children, they're labeled as emotional, or the social ones in the family. And usually there's another sibling that's labeled as the smarter one. Fascinating. And that was definitely the case in my family, that I was told that I was the social butterfly, that I was the one who was so dramatic, right? And I spent probably the first half of my life really trying hard to be more academic, right? I'll put quotes around that, to be smarter. And maybe you've noticed that anytime you, or for example, me in this case, that anytime you try to do anything that's not authentically you, right, it's an uphill battle. So I am more social and emotional. That doesn't mean I'm not smart. I just happen to be very social, emotional. I love talking about feelings. Clearly, if I'm on my podcast talking about feelings. So not trying to be authentic it creates a big problem if you're trying to not be who you are. So at this point in my life, right, I stopped suppressing my emotions and I feel my emotions on the regular. That's something I regularly do. I notice, I feel sensations in my body. I'm with my emotions. This is not an unusual practice for me. And, right, this is in one of those and places in capital letters. And there is a particularly painful belief, emotion, those two are going together for me, that's coming up around this belief of, it's kind of interesting. There's actually kind of probably a little cluster of beliefs, right? Of not being good enough or not being capable, right? There's a lot of emotion around those beliefs. And what I've been noticing is that as I sort of feel it and feel into it, I also sort of don't feel it or feel into it. And let me explain a little bit, is that my pattern is to stay really busy. I mean, really busy. And I do all the things. I am very good at doing things. I do a lot of things. I'm a manifesting generator. If you are familiar with human design, I do lots of things. Beautiful. And it conveniently helps me to avoid anything that I don't really want to see or something that feels maybe more uncomfortable to me. Okay? So here I am feeling my feelings and not feeling my feelings, right? There are some feelings that I will feel, some not. Like I noticed, the post on the dishwasher a few episodes ago, right? I was noticing my feelings. I felt my feelings. I noticed them. They went away. They cleared. It was a more recent emotion. I could feel that. These deeper ones were coming up, right? And so for the last 4 months, I was feeling these bigger emotions. But here's the thing. In the last 4 months, I also very purposefully took pretty much everything off my plate, except myself and my family. I'm on leave from the university. I am saying no to a lot of things that I would normally say yes to. I'm very kind of protecting my time, which means I'm not as busy, which is my mode of protecting myself from seeing emotions that I don't really want to see. So as a result, I have watched how I still managed to try and fill up my time with things for me to do so that I wasn't feeling, right? It's really amazing. And I keep watching it kind of out of the corner of my eye, watching this process of busyness and how I was really helping to create this busyness for myself. So, things will come up. I'll feel them. I won't feel them. Both is happening. And this week, I keep getting the message in several different situations. I'm being confronted with it again and again that I am practicing, that I need to practice being with those emotions, and that I've been avoiding by being busy and doing all the things. So I decided it was time to actually be with those emotions. So when I settled in to talk to the guides, one of the pieces that I received from them is that there's this big box of emotions waiting for me. So I saw this earlier this week. There's this big box of emotions, and there were two parts of me that were feeling different things. There's a younger part of me that's feeling pretty sad and doesn't want to look at that box of emotions. And then there's another part of me that is really not wanting to see that box of emotions, and that's the busyness, right? She wants to avoid it. So those two, the one who's keeping busy and is scared, or the one who is scared to look, and then there's this one who is very scared of what people will think if she's not productive, right? That's why we can't look at it. So today, well, and actually a couple of different times during this week, I sat down with those younger parts and this big box of emotions, not really knowing what was in the box, but knowing that it was there. So in the box was this belief, and the feeling that goes along with it. The feeling is what was in the box, this feeling of not being capable, right? And as I reached in out of that box, this feeling was actually this beautiful golden orb. And as I pulled it out of the box, I felt it in the body, right? The emotion that come along with it was sadness and shame. And those kind of washed over me as I picked up this orb. And in that moment, I could sit with that emotion. And the reason I could do that is I was there as my wise, compassionate self. This kind of centered self. She was there. She was the one holding it, not the younger parts of me. The belief of not capable was there, and these younger parts were feeling sad and ashamed. She could hold it all, right? The younger parts that were feeling this, the belief, right? All of it there. Because she was not that, right? My wise self. So she could hold it all in unconditional love and acceptance in order to witness it. And in witnessing it, right? In witnessing it and being there, it changed. So yes, this emotion, this belief, this experience, these younger parts of me, all of that were there, and I could be with it, all of those parts, and be okay. The emotion, the belief itself wasn't going to kill me, although that's how it felt earlier, right? But I could be there, and it didn't drown me, and it didn't kill me, right? I could feel it, and I was okay. And in sitting there and being with this golden orb and all of the emotions and the younger parts, it was really clear to me that this golden orb belief was actually a soul essence that was ready to be returned to me, right? So I could be there, be present with it. And even just saying that now, that's really what all beliefs and emotions are soul essences that are ready and willing to come back to us energetically, spiritually, right? That part of ourselves. So my guides, they're the ones who return soul essences. My guide was there and returned it to my heart and allowed it to settle, this essence of capability, of being capable. And in this way, this belief and these emotions were ready to be seen in a new way, and it's not as scary anymore. And that is really the magic of pulling all of these wellness bodies together, right? The entryway, the doorway was through emotions, right? Through these emotions, through the beliefs. But what came about is spiritual guidance, my guides being there, holding the space, the wise mentor being there, the thoughts, right? Looking at the thoughts that are there. I'm looking at the emotions. I'm feeling it in my body. The energy is being returned to me. It's all it's all there in this process of showing up for myself. Really, that's the basis of it all, is showing up for myself in a way, being present for myself to feel these emotions. Sometimes being present for yourself looks like cooking a nutritious meal. But for me this week, although I did cook nutritious meals for myself, I also just showed up for those emotions as best as I could, which most of the week wasn't very good. I wasn't able to really do it very well. And that's okay. That's all I could do at that moment. So my encouragement for you is to try this for yourself. Find a time when you can sit in undisturbed silence, right? And I'll just say that this wasn't a very long process. I mean, it took me all week to get to it. And when I finally sat, it wasn't very long. Ask your guides to come in and support you. Ask very specifically, right? Set the intention for all the loving, compassionate spirit guides to be there for you. And you can start with an emotion. You can start with a belief, or even if there's just like, gosh, I just feel this like heaviness around my heart, right? You can ask who's present with you, what parts of you are present. And you can ask how old that part is, what she's feeling, right? You can talk to that young part. And then notice as you are talking to that young part, right? You become that wise part of you that can hold it all in loving, unconditional love, right? Loving compassion and unconditional love. If you're familiar with loving compassion and unconditional love, that's great. It does take some practice if you're not familiar with it. Sometimes, if you're not familiar with it, it may be helpful to have someone who can kind of help us hold that space. And this is exactly what I do with my clients. I just hold that unconditional love and compassionate space for them until they can do it for themselves. And let me tell you that this is one of the most beautiful things to watch as someone can begin to hold that space for themselves. Okay, my sweet friends, I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're listening. And I hope you try it this week. I encourage you to try it this week and let me know how it goes. Feel your feelings. Notice your body and the message that it's giving to you. That feeling of irritation or tightness or angst in your body is your body trying to give you a message. And if you need some support, I have a free mini session that I offer so I can help you get unstuck. I can hold that space for you. That loving, compassionate, unconditional love. I'll put the link in the show notes below. Okay, dear ones, take good care of yourself. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Whole Body Upgrade. If you'd like to learn more about working with me, you can visit me on Facebook or Instagram or on my website, CenteredYou, that's CenteredYou.com. See you on the next episode of Whole Body Upgrade.